All right, folks. Not a good day. Not a good day. Today was supposed to be a kind of pleasant discussion of does God exist? Is God dead? I will do that. But the news is so horrible this morning that I had to play the Mourner's Cottage, the prayer for the dead, the Jewish prayer for the dead, because the animals called Hamas, who most Muslims hate and fear, slaughtered all the hostages in the tunnels. Today we are all Zionists. It's that simple. And there's nothing else I can say about that particular news story. So I want to go back to my original idea, because that's about all I've got left to talk about, which is God dead? And of course, the answer is pretty clear to me. It's a rhetorical question, because for me, the answer is no, man is dead to God. Last night I was trying to think, what can I talk about? Is God dead came to me. Sometimes these thoughts come to me and I write them down and then I finish it. Is God dead? No, man is dead to God. Now, I know many of you are not. I understand that. But many of you are. There is no God. There is no God for most people in America today. We are a nation of, there's no describing what I'm about to say. I fill it in any way you want. There's 1,000 different words that could be used, but I'm not here to sit and preach to the world about how to be or what to become. And I'm pure and you're impure. We're all impure. We're all animals. We're all impure. We all have a long way to go before we get to where we want to get. And the fact is that I'm just trying to put it all together for myself, as well as for those of you who feel the same way I do about the world at large. So the news, as I say, if you haven't seen it yet, is that the Hamas animals slaughtered all the hostages before the Israelis, the IDF, could rescue them. Lately, I've been watching some television here in America called Body Cam, and it's police body cam footage. You think you know what the police go through, but you don't know what the police go through. I don't know what the police go through. I'm not in the police world. I cannot believe the refuse of humanity that police have to put up with on a daily basis, with their hands cuffed by the vermin in the ACLU, the National Lawyers Guild, the liberals, the Democrats, the media. I don't know how the cops do their job. You sit here and you watch the body cam footage of them trying to take down someone who just killed somebody, and the animal is on drugs. It takes 4 strong cops with tattoos all over their arms to restrain the animal, because the man is no longer human because of the drugs. And so here in America, we also have a problem. We have a problem of the vermin in the militant ACLU, which is the most dangerous terrorist organization America has ever faced, because they kill not with bullets, but with words and with the shackles of the left wing laws. They make the police almost incapable of doing their job. So our cities die. The cities are dying because of the vermin in the ACLU, the National Lawyers Guild, all the good little liberal girls who come out of Harvard, Columbia, NYU law to help the oppressed minority. Watch body cam footage. See what the police have to put up with when they try to take down the worst of society who threaten all of us. Well, now take that and magnify it by 1,000-fold, and you'll see what the Israelis are having to face over there in the tunnels, in the hell of the tunnels in Gaza. And you will see what they are facing. Our men face the same thing in Iraq when they went into the tunnels, or when they went into the door-to-door fighting in Iraq. Many of them are broken. Some of them are laying in the ground underneath crosses. And we sit here in the peace and harmony of America where we can, escaping from it on this Labor Day weekend, getting ready for a hot dog or a hamburger, stuffing our faces with dead animals. Okay, that's what people do. I don't want to talk about diets. Please don't distract yourself with it. I'm not going to do it. But how can we talk about God today in a godless world? Wars are very easy to start. They're very hard to stop. Let's pause on that for a minute. Wars are very easy to start and very difficult to stop, especially when you have incompetent psychotics running a nation as we do now. They started a war between Ukraine and Russia. It was started by Victoria Nuland and others in 2013 or 2014. You have to know history in order to even have that discussion. And now that war is going on, hundreds of thousands of dead Ukrainian men, an entire generation of Ukrainian men sacrificed for the drug addict in a green undershirt, who was just the front man, by the way. The drug addict in a green undershirt, who was a good friend of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and all of the psychotic, disgusting people who lead the Western world, leading us into what? The abyss of World War III? Who's talking about peace? Wars are very easy to start, very difficult to stop. And here at home, a war has been started against the middle class by the Communist Front. And if Harris and Waltz should win, the communists will win. It's that simple. They are naked communists, both of them, whether they know it or not. I'm sure Waltz knows it. Harris probably doesn't even know that she's a communist, even though she was granted the Lenin Prize when she was a young girl, and she is clearly the daughter of a Marxist professor. So I would say that there's a high likelihood she knows what she is. So this is a battle between good and evil right now in America, a battle between good and evil in the world, and a battle between good and evil within our very souls themselves. We ourselves struggle every day because we're all impure. Make no mistake about it. We're all dirty. We're all evil. We're all filthy. We're all no good. That's what the Christian doctrine is, by the way, is that we're all no good. What do you think people go to church for on a Sunday morning? You want to cleanse their souls. Why do people go to synagogue and put on the clean tallis, the white tallis and the yarmulke? Because they feel that all week long they were toiling in the dirt of humanity. They themselves, the dirty things that they did, whether it was cheating someone in business, cheating on their wife, whatever they did. So they go into the synagogue and they try to cleanse their soul on a Sabbath. They want to come out refreshed and clean. Don't we all? We're all fallen angels. We're all imperfect. So when I say, is God dead? No, man is dead to God. What do I mean by that? I don't know what I mean by that. Are you dead to God? I try not to be dead to God personally. I try to do the best I can. Do I always succeed? Absolutely not. So I've shown this book before, my little prayer book that my grandmother gave to me when I was 13. She was not a religious woman. She was from Russia. She didn't believe in God. I believe she was probably very political. But when her grandson, she never spoke a word of English, incidentally. I still have her papers where she's trying to learn English and to become a citizen. So in that book, I have some notes that fall out. And one of the notes is this. Again, I like to show you the notes. The searching is the finding. God doesn't want us to find him. God doesn't want us to find him. He remains obscure or obscured from us. He remains obscured from us. Those are my very words, so that we seek him. He remains obscured from us so that we seek him. Words are very important. I didn't say God remains obscure, did I? Notice the use of the word. I said God remains obscured from us so that we seek him. So that was an insight I had many years ago, and I thought I'd share it with you today, because many of you say, how can I believe in a God that I don't see? Because most of us are materialists, right? We want to see something that we worship. So we worship gold. We worship a ring. We worship gold. We worship silver. We worship a car. We worship our house. We worship our clothing. We worship our makeup. We worship our looks. We worship our jobs. We worship our this or that. That's our worship today. Wars are very easy to start and very difficult to stop. Hamas should have thought about that when they crossed the border and massacred all of the peaceniks having a be-in Gaza, or near God, across the border from Gaza in Israel. And by the way, most of the people on that kibbutz that was slaughtered and taken hostage were of the left-wing persuasion, incidentally. These were not West Bank fundamentalist types. These were the hippies of Israel who the Hamas bastards raped, slaughtered, and killed and burned. These were the peaceniks who thought that they were going to make peace and love with Hamas. Many of them said that they were our friends across the border. Many of them said that people in Gaza are our friends. We go back and forth. We love them. We're good liberal Jews. We love them. They embrace us. They come to our orchards. They work for us. They love us. And then on October 7th, they were raped and slaughtered by them and taken hostage by them. Wars are very easy to start, very difficult to stop. And so here we are in America, sitting in our paradise of America, most of us living in paradise. Most of us living in paradise, let's face it. More food than we know what to do with. A land of plenty, a land of milk and honey. Some of us know this, and some of us try to keep it clean and keep it straight. And we succeed in places, and in other places we don't. But we feel on the perimeters around us, right on the perimeters of our safe world, we feel it all because we have the ability to feel it all. We feel it all, and we know that on the perimeters there lurch the gangs of Venezuela that were brought in by Biden and Harris. You saw what's going on in Aurora, Colorado, where one of the most violent gangs in the world, released from prisons in the socialist hell, came right over the border, welcomed by Catholic Charities, Jewish Family Services, Lutheran Family Services, all the greediest scumbags on the planet, making billions of dollars, bringing in the scum of the earth, putting them all over America. And now this gang has taken over an apartment complex with guns, knives, machetes in Aurora, Colorado. And the vermin governor, that piece of garbage governor of Colorado, says there's nothing happening in Aurora, Colorado. It's all made up by the conservatives. Can you believe this? Can you believe the world we live in, that we have Democrat governors who say that there's no gang problem in Aurora, Colorado? There's no gang problem in the streets of New York. There's no crime in San Francisco where a famous ball player was shot in the chest just yesterday. I was in San Francisco the other day and I did a little video on YouTube. I had a very good time. It looked like the old days. I didn't know. It was during the day. It looked beautiful. And then just 2 days later, a famous ball player is walking in Union Square, once the commercial retail center of San Francisco, was shot by a piece of human trash, a subhuman, a golem. Shot him in the chest to steal his watch. right in San Francisco. The stores are gone. The stores are empty. Gone, empty. The retail center of San Francisco has been destroyed by Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, the dead Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer, and all of the other scum of the earth who have permitted this to happen. Why did they let this happen to the city that they live in? How can they even run for a higher office when they destroyed the city and state that they live in? How can Kamala Harris run a country when she destroyed a state and a city? How? How? Because the people are stoned, stupid, brainwashed, and don't know right from wrong, left from right, up from down. They don't understand anything. Is God dead? That's the theme of today's mini sermon. I have to go back to no man is dead to God. Are you dead to God? Or are you alive to God? I wrote this morning. While we shower our entertainers and minstrels with coin, we starve and shun our prophets. I'll read that again. While we shower our minstrels and entertainers with coin, we starve and shun our prophets. I'll let you think about that over the next few days. While we shower our minstrels and entertainers with coin, we starve and shun our prophets. So when I got up today, I didn't even want to do this. I said, it's a Labor Day weekend. People don't want to hear it. They don't need me. They can go to the church. They can go to synagogue yesterday. They go to a Buddhist temple. They go to a Hindu temple. They can reach their spiritual heights without me. For who am I? Just one of 7 some odd billion people walking the earth trying to figure it all out. That's all. Just one of you. Just one of you walking amongst you in this paradise called America. Well, is it a paradise? It is for some. For others, it's a hell. A hell of their own making, by the way, because it doesn't have to be a hell. This is a land with plenty. There's no starvation. It's all a lie. There's just obesity, not starvation. It's not food that they want. It's drugs that they want. Why do they want drugs? Because their souls are dead. They want to fill their empty soul with drugs. I was going to read to you a piece from my book, God, Faith, and Reason. I figured that would be a good piece for today on this Labor Day. But, then I read the news and I said, I don't know if I could read this today. I was going to read something pleasant and light, dinner with an atheist and a Buddhist. It was kind of pleasant and fun in my book, but I don't think I'm going to do it today. You can read it yourself. It's on page 37. After I read the killing of the hostages, slaughtering them in cold blood, think if you're a cop in America and there's a hostage that you're going in to rescue, you're in a SWAT team, and you do your best to not hurt the hostages. And you get in there and you find that the hostage or the hostages that the drug addict was holding are dead because he shot them. What are you going to do as a cop? Your heart's broken. You don't know what to do with yourself. That's why cops have such a high rate of suicide and self-harm, because the things that they see, we don't see. They have to deal with it. They have to process it. They have to go home at night and deal with it. The cops that are so reviled by the vermin in the ACLU, who should be deported as far as I'm concerned. If it was up to me and I was advising Trump, I'd arrest everybody who runs the ACLU. I'd seize all their assets, because most of the assets in the ACLU come from crime. By the way, shall I tell you about a couple here in San Francisco who ran a bank into the ground? I even know their names. They made billions of dollars selling a fraudulent bank to another bank when the bank was already busted out with mortgages that were not fulfilled in 2008. Very nice Jewish couple. Oy vey, were they good. They gave to such a good charities. Shall I give you their names? I even forgot their names. I don't even carry their names around. Do you know the name of the bank that they sold? And who picked up the dead bank and then lost billions of dollars and the whole housing market collapsed? And where did much of that money go that these two bastards stole from you? ACLU. They left a fortune to the ACLU. That's a separate story for politics. There's such evil on the planet, it's hard to even know where it begins and where it ends. So, no, I can't read to you today a pleasant little story from God, Faith, and Reason. I think I'll read you the part where I wrote, "It's impossible to prove that God does not exist." So, I have three higher degrees, two really high, fine master's degrees, and a PhD that was published as a book from a first rate university. And I'm a very logical person when I want to be. When I need to use Aristotelian logic, I can use it. I can analyze things and break them down and come to a truth. But when it comes to God, you can't use logic or reason. So I have to write something that's logical to try to prove to you that God does not exist. For those of you who don't believe in anything, it's impossible to prove that God does not exist, I wrote. So let me read that to you. Why does God do this to us? It's not a question of proving that God exists. All I can think is that it's impossible that he doesn't exist. It's as though my mind has reached the point of saying it can't all be an accident. It can't be. It's impossible. There's no possibility that we're a National Geographic creation run by a bunch of crazed leftists. Almost every show on the National Geographic channel seems to try to show that God doesn't exist, that there was a speck of dust in the universe. Then carbon fell down and mixed up with oxygen in the swamp and the slime and other molecules. And here we are trying on clothing in department stores. That's a good sentence, by the way. I finally am laughing. That's good. That's a hell of a sentence, by the way. Almost every show on the National Geographic channel seems to try to show that God doesn't exist, that there was a speck of dust in the universe. Then carbon fell down and mixed up with the oxygen in the swamp and the slime and other molecules. And here we are trying on clothing in department stores. It doesn't make sense to me. No matter where my mind goes on a scientific level, I am a total believer. What does that do for you? Nothing. What does it mean for me? Everything. Because I'm confident that this is the way it's supposed to be, even when bad things happen. Let's go into bad things, because today is a bad day for those of you who understand what just happened. That the Israelis found that hostages all slaughtered in the tunnels. That's why I open with the prayer for the dead, the Jewish prayer for the dead, the Kaddish. So I say I've had bad things happen to me, not major ones. Major bad things, including I didn't have the major bad things, like losing a child, God forbid, getting cancer, having a heart attack. Well, I've since had that. Not being able to talk, I can still talk. Having a stroke, haven't had that. Developing Alzheimer's disease, haven't had that yet. Those are bad, bad things. Going broke after you have made some money, that's another bad thing. That'll kill you faster than cancer will. One of the most devastating things that could happen to you is to have some success, lose it all, and wind up back where you started or worse. That's probably one of the worst things that could happen to a person in America. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we read of a hedge fund guy who, perfect wife, perfect children, the Hamptons, big East Side apartment, threw himself out of a building because he wasn't worth a dime. Marin County's filled with those types. Marin County, California, filled with the frauds. Like you see them walking around, the rented Mercedes, the rented this, the rented BMW, the Maserati, the Lamborghini. They don't have two nickels to rub together. And what they had, they robbed from somebody with a hedge fund. We see them all around us. When they lose it all, they have nothing to fall back upon, so they fall out of a window because they can't live. There's nothing there. Unless you have God, there's nothing to go back to when you lose it all. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod Yolom Va'ed. When you're wheeled into an emergency room, you'll know how to pray. What is God's plan? I don't know. How do you deal with bad, bad things? How do you deal with a child dying of leukemia in a cancer ward? What are you going to say? It was karma? It was the child's karma? He was a bad person in another life? I'm sorry, I don't accept that. That's why a book I read years ago still sticks with me, where he says if God is omnipresent, that God is omnipresent but not omnipotent. Somebody wrote that book. God is omnipresent but is not omnipotent. He does not control every aspect of our lives. He doesn't control our every breath. We have free will in that regard. In other words, pay attention to this, boys and girls. I know some of you are dozing off and want to leave for the barbecue. Here's the last line of this little piece. In other words, God starts the clock and then the clock runs. You are the clock. Where you go with what you are given is another story. I'll read that again. God starts the clock and then the clock runs. You are the clock. Where you go with what you are given is another story. Jeremiah 29:13, and ye shall seek me and find me when ye shall search for me with all your heart. Jeremiah 29:13, and ye shall seek me and find me when ye shall search for me with all your heart. God is there. You got to look for him. I mean, that concludes the secular portion of today's program. I think I'm going to have to turn to the Bible itself to finish this up. I've been with you for 27 minutes. I'll give you 3 more minutes, and then I have to quit. Just bear with me one moment. Here's a book I've had with me for a long time. As you can see, I've dipped into it from time to time. A few post-its here and there. And it's called the Holy Scriptures, better known as the Bible, 5 books of Moses. And I don't know where to begin. Exodus, Pentateuch, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. I don't know where to begin. So let me begin at the beginning with Genesis. The mythology of Genesis that most rational people cannot accept. That people who have been trained in American schools and universities, where the 10 commandments were taken off the wall and only the first commandment was put up, which is thou shalt pleasure thyself. That's the only commandment put up in our schools today. Genesis begins like this, if those of you who don't know it. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Now the earth was unformed and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God said, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. Powerful words. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning one day. I think I'm going to pause right there because that's the opening part of the actual Jewish Bible in Genesis. It's a very important piece that could be analyzed for the ages, and it has been. The earth was unformed, and it was formed. God said, let there be light, and there was light. And he liked the light, and he divided the light from the darkness. What does that mean? He divided the light from the darkness. What does that mean? What about the light and the darkness within our souls? He called the lightness day and the darkness night. And there was evening and there was morning one day. That is why there's a great piece from the Bible. One word became a great novel by Ernest Hemingway. The sun also rises. The sun also rises. So in the darkest of times, we have to remember that morning will come. The darkest of times, we lay down at night with the darkness in our hearts. We must remember the sun also rises. In the morning, we will feel better. At dawn, I wake up every day at dawn, no matter when I go to sleep. No matter how much I pull curtains at night because I like darkness. I like to sleep in the darkness. But under the curtain is light. 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. I get up. Sometimes I don't want to get out of the bed. I want to stay in that warm bed. But I get up. I separate the darkness from the light because strange things happen in the darkness of the night, in my brain, in your brain. We start to imagine things. We start to yearn things that we know in the light we're not going to do. That's darkness. So we get up and we embrace the light. We try to take the light into our souls. And what is the light? The light's God's day. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so, and God called the firmament heaven. And there was evening, and there was morning, a second day. Have you ever walked on this God's earth and looked at the landforms around you with the eyes of a scientist? Have you seen that the land you are walking on are mountaintops that were once submerged? Have you seen that? You probably understood that. This earth was once covered with water. Ice ages gave way to warm ages. From the beginning of time, ice ages covering. Then the ice melts, floods the earth. Now we have the fools trying to hoodwink you into believing that there's a thing called climate change. When has climate not changed? When has climate not changed? What are you people that stupid that you don't even know history, Earth's history? Climate's always been changing, and drastically at that. You don't know about the mini ice ages in the Middle Ages in England when it was freezing in England? Nothing. Who did that? There were no cars, Al Gore. There were no cars that caused the ice age, then the melting of the ice age. Other things changed the climate, which is not to argue for pollution. I hate pollution. I've been an environmentalist or conservationist since I'm a child. Who isn't? Who doesn't want a cleaner earth? Who doesn't want clean airs, water, and places? We all do. Aristotle wrote airs, water, and places. Everyone's an environmentalist, but you don't get there by lying, as do the Democrats. Notice they've dropped climate change from that was a big deal for a while, and they dropped it because it wasn't selling. Now it's democracy itself that we're fighting for. The very people who want to end free speech in America fighting for democracy. The very people who put a filthy, degenerate bastard in power in Ukraine in a dirty green undershirt who's killing hundreds of thousands of his own men and send our weapons of war, F-16s, it doesn't matter, to go fight Russians. These are the people that you're going to believe in? Not the peacemakers, the war makers, the haters. And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called his seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let the earth put forth grass, herb yielding seed, and fruit tree bearing fruit after its kind, wherein is the seed thereof upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, herb yielding seed after its kind, and tree bearing fruit, wherein is the seed thereof after its kind. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, a third day. You know, it's beautiful to read Genesis with you this morning. It's very beautiful to read it. And notice how the Bible begins. It doesn't begin with moralizing. It doesn't begin with thou shalt and thou shalt not. It begins with the creationism of the earth. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, that would be the sun, boys and girls, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars, the lesser light being the moon. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and so rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. Amen. And there was evening, and there was morning, a fourth day. Should I go on? You can do it yourself. Pick up a Bible, read Genesis. I think I'll move ahead in Genesis. I'll go from Genesis 1 to the middle of Genesis. And I'll read that to you because it's about us. And the egotists among us want to hear about us now. And God said, see, I underlined that part. That's the part I underlined a long time ago. And God said, I have to put a little light on it. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. That's an important one. Let us make man in our image, and we shall have dominance over the animals, basically. And God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Listen to that. God created man in his own image. So we are the image of God. We have God within us. You understand that? If we read that God created man in his own image, not in our own image, but in the image of God, it means God created us in his image. God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female. That's a big one, isn't it? Especially in a world like ours where we don't know the difference between man and woman. We've reached the point where Kamala Harris says she can't define a woman. I think she's dropped that one by now. He created male and female, created he them. That's a single piece of a sentence in Genesis. In the image of God created he him, male and female, created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that creepeth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given ye every herb yielding seed. Read this to yourself over and over again. And we'll move on to 18. We'll go to chapter 2 of Genesis 18, where it comes again to the sacred nature of man and woman, forgotten by the sickest people on the planet who don't know the difference. How can a man say he's a woman when he can't give birth? Doesn't that end the conversation? How can a man say he's a woman when he can't give birth? Forget that. I mean, he's confused in his head. He wants to be a girl. He's always wanted to be a girl, wants to be a woman, but he's not a woman. He can't give birth. That's the dividing line. You understand that? You can't fake it. And the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him. And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto the man to see what he would call them, and whatsoever the man would call every living creature, and what was to be the name thereof. And they gave the animals different names. And then you get to the back of Genesis 2, before we get to Genesis 3. Pay attention, boys and girls. God had taken from the man, made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And the man said, this is now bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, which they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. I think I'll pause there. That's a great painting comes to mind. Man and woman naked, cast out into the world, but they were not ashamed. That's an interesting sentence. As they say, food for thought. Food for thought. But you have to read this stuff and think about it for it to have meaning. I mean, if you're just sitting in a church and you read this, it goes through you, it doesn't mean anything. They were both naked, and the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed. All right, we'll pause on that. I think that's quite enough for the day. I'll go back to the beginning and close out where I began with the question, is God dead? No, man is dead to God. And on the bottom I wrote, while we shower our minstrels and entertainers with coin, we starve and shun our prophets. And now you'll know why most of America anyway thinks God is dead, because the minstrels and the entertainers have distracted you from your core self. How can you think about God when you have all this entertainment on the internet? You starve and shun your prophets. You spit on them. You call your prophets fools or crazy. You call them losers. You don't turn to the book called The Rock of Ages, do you? Little note I put on this book so long ago. I forgot what the words meant. I learned them again. I've told this story before. I was at the wedding of a friend who was since deceased, who was about to be married. He was Jewish. She was Italian Catholic. And her father happened to be a very famous middleweight champion of the world who was a hero of mine as a child. I was shocked to be in the room with him. One of the great fighters of all time, an Italian fighter. And his daughter was marrying a friend of mine. And I was so awed to be in the room with this fighter. He was a humble, quiet man. It was just the rabbi, the father, the daughter, my friend, and me. I don't think anyone else was in there. I don't remember. I was like a witness. Who knows? It was so long ago. But I remember when the rabbi pulled out the Bible and the box, the famous boxer said, "Yes, Rabbi, that is the what do you call it? The Rock of Ages. The Rock of Ages." His name was Rocky, by the way. He said that book was the Rock of Ages. Great fighter. Somehow he didn't think it was a weak thing to believe in God. Raised a Catholic boy, probably in the slums of Manhattan, fought his way up to the top. He believed in God. So many great men who are fighters and tough believe in God. It's not for sissies to believe in God. It takes a tough man to believe in God in this world, by the way. You have to be really tough and hard to believe in God in a world where you are mocked, particularly as a child in school. If a child says, "I believe in God," in a grade school, to laugh at him. They don't believe in God. They believe in an entertainer who rubs his crotch. They believe in a drug dealer. They believe in some fool who walks with his pants hanging down under his ass. That's what they're taught to believe in, a gangster, not in God. Hard for a child today. So I hope I've given you something to think about today. I certainly haven't given you any answers. I haven't given you any questions. Did you enjoy today's sermon? Because that's it for the day. Did you enjoy this? Because if you enjoyed it, I'm glad, because I gave you God talk today. Is God dead? And I think I've answered the question for you from my point of view. But I invite all of you to pick up a Bible. Just pick up a Bible. Pick up a Bible. Start reading the Bible. See if it makes any sense to you. You can't find God by not reading the book of God, can you? You can walk around saying, "I don't believe in God." Have you read a book that the Jews claim God wrote? Then how could you believe? How could you believe in something you haven't even studied? When everything around you tells you not to believe in anything except to believe in the state. That's called Marxism. Believe in the state. Believe in the politician. I don't. I don't believe in man. Did you enjoy today's sermon? I hope you did. It was not easy for me today. I'm telling you right now, this was a very difficult day for me for a number of reasons, both because of struggles within my own soul to seek the light when it's easier to stay in the darkness or even the shadows of the day and not embrace the light of God, embrace the light of day, just stay in the netherworld. It's easier to stay there and not wake up and throw cold water onto your face and say, "I've got to get up. I've got to go out there." Some people, whether it's 5,000 or 10,000, so it's not millions, whatever, are listening to this live on X and live on YouTube and then elsewhere. Are you going to judge people by the number of followers they have? Well, I'll remind you of something. Take your favorite person, conservative or liberal, and they have, let's say, 1.4 million, 3.4 million, 8.9 million, 12.2 million. A naked girl would have more followers than they do. A pornography show would have more than they do. Or you want to boast about someone who has so many followers? If Hitler came back, he'd have more followers than they do. So don't go by the followers. Don't go by the followers. Don't go by the number of followers to determine whether or not the person is worthy of your attention. Just remember this, to the Hebrew, the word is the deed. To the Hebrew, the word is the deed. That's an ancient saying. And I've tried to give you the true word today, the true word of God from Michael Savage. To you, thank you for being with me. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. It's a very dark time. Don't lose faith. Don't give up hope. God is with us. God will save us. And God